Were you at the Century 16 movie theater on July 19th and 20th of 2012 in Aurora, Colorado?
Yes.
How long prior to July 19th had you purchased tickets to the movie?
Roughly a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks.
What time did you arrive at the theater that night?
Give or take 10:45 p.m.
Who did you arrive with?
Tony and Bryson Billapondo.
Who were you meeting when you got to the theater?
Our other coworkers from Red Robin were already there, and I also had 4 other friends who were joining us later in the evening.
I think we know who the Red Robin crew is at this point. So who were your other friends that you were meeting there?
Mike White Sr., Mike White Jr., Paula, what's her last name? Adams, and Michelle Baker.
And who was Mike White Jr. to you at the time?
We were dating. He was my boyfriend at the time.
What'd you do when you got to the movie theater that night?
Put our stuff down, saved our seats, went to the concession stand 3 times, went outside, hung out, just walked around joking.
All right. And where did you find your seats in the theater?
Up in the stadium seating. Sully was already there and had a row saved, so we had the entire row except for 2 seats on the left side.
Your Honor, if I may approach the witness with what's been marked as People's Exhibit 1170.
Yes.
Do you recognize that diagram, Ms. Soudani?
Yes.
Does it fairly and accurately represent what you recall happening in the theater on July 20th of 2012?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time I'd move for the admission of People's Exhibit 1170.
Is there any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Without objection, P-TR-1170 is admitted and may be published.
Thank you. And with the court's permission, if I could ask Ms. Soudani to approach the 3D model, Your Honor, to describe what she saw in the theater that night.
Yes, please take the handheld microphone. Thank you.
Hello. Whoa, sorry.
All right, Ms. Soudani, could you please show the jury where you were seated in the theater that night?
Right here, 5th seat in.
All right, and who was seated on the other side, Sylvia?
Mike White Jr., Mike White Sr., Paula, and Michelle. I'm not sure the order of Paula and Michelle, though.
And they were on the very aisle?
On the very end, yes.
Okay, and so then you were 5 seats in. All right, what do you recall happening during the movie that night?
Where do you want me to start?
So when did something happen in your movie that was unusual?
Oh, just a little bit. Yeah, the movie had already started. I don't know what point of the movie we were at. Heather Snyder and I were goofing off, joking about something. But something was launched from the upper right corner of the front is the screen, and it caught my attention mid-air, and then it landed what I thought was to be just a couple of rows below us, but on the left side.
All right, what do you recall happening after seeing that canister?
I saw smoke coming from it, and I started hearing pops. At first, I thought the pops were coming from the canister. Bunch of my friends got down, and I just sat there thinking it was a prank. And then I thought it was fireworks, and then when I saw the pops going off and no sparkles or any firework-like thing happening afterwards, I realized it wasn't a joke, and Heather Snyder and Mike both grabbed me and pulled me down.
Do you show the jury where they pulled you down to?
In front of my seat, just on the floor.
All right, and how were your bodies positioned on the floor?
If you were to be looking at the screen, at first I was in the fetal position, laying on my right side with the front of my body facing the screen.
All right, and how was Mike White Jr.'s body?
I don't know.
Okay, and do you know what Heather's body was like
No.
at that time? What do you recall after they pulled you down to the ground?
Pops were still going off, and so I just tried to cover my face, and then for a moment the pops stopped. And so I got up, was going to try to leave, and then all of a sudden I felt my side was soaking wet, and I felt it was warm, and I knew that I was hit.
What could you see of your injuries?
I couldn't see anything, but I looked down. At the time I was wearing a light gray t-shirt, and I looked down, and I could see just blood just starting to pour from my abdomen. And then when I realized I was hurt, I tried to, like, reach for Mike to get his attention, and then my intestines and my stomach actually fell out, and I had to bend down and actually catch my intestines and push them back in my body with my left arm.
What do you recall happening after you did that?
After I did that, I just laid down and told myself to stay calm. And then, but as I was going down, I said, I'm hit. And then Mike White Jr., it got his attention. And then as I fell to the ground, he comes over to me and said, where are you hit? And I told him my side. And then he just reached over my body, but like with his left arm, because his right arm was injured. He reached over with his left arm and started holding in my organs.
Could you tell if you had been shot in any other part of your body at that point in time?
At that point, I couldn't tell.
Okay. What do you recall after Mike was trying to keep your organs in?
He was holding my side, and then he kind of leaned back. He fell back. I could tell he was in pain, and he had been hit. I couldn't tell how bad, though. And then for some reason, I wanted to take my shoes off, so I took my shoe off my right foot, and I lifted up my left leg to take my other shoe off, and I saw that majority of my calf had been filleted off, basically, and it was only hanging on by a piece.
Your Honor, at this time, I would ask for Ms. Soudani to be able to show the jury her calf at this point.
Well, there's part of the front, and then the majority of it is from the back.
All right. Thank you. Good balancing act there. What do you recall happening next in the theater?
When I noticed my leg was injured the way that it was, I took my foot from the seat and tried to lay it down, not knowing it was on top of Heather Snyder's face. I thought I put my leg on a different part of her body, and then I kind of felt her kind of smack it away almost, or something, and then she got up and ran out.
Could you tell if any of your other friends had been injured at this point?
I couldn't tell, only Mike. Mike Jr., that is.
So what happened next in the theater?
Laying down on the ground, I couldn't breathe. And, are we done up here? Can I sit back down?
Sure. And I just, before you sit back down, could you just show the jury where it was that you exited?
The front, if you're looking at the screen from the front right, down these stairs, front right.
Okay. All right. Thank you. You can take your seat. So what do you recall happening next in the theater?
I was just laying there trying to breathe. I couldn't, pardon me, I couldn't breathe. And, I had to stare up. I didn't even have the strength to look around me and see if anyone was okay. And I just remember looking up, and I could see the room is filling with the gas. I could just hear blurts of shrieking and screaming, and you could tell that people were getting hit when they screamed. And periodically Mike Jr. kept, or after a moment, I'm not sure of the time frame, but he sat back up and had his hand on me. And at one point, I can't remember, his dad, Mike White Sr., had come back. At this point, the lights were already on. I don't know if the shots have stopped yet or not. But Mike White Sr., he lays over me, trying to get me to be quiet for some reason, and I kept seeing him look up and look around and then duck his head down, and I couldn't understand why, or why he was trying to get me to be quiet. But after a couple moments of that, he took off his shirt, put it on my side, grabbed his son by his left shoulder sleeve area, yanked him over to me and said, "You need a protector." And then he ran out of the theater, I'm assume looking for help.
What do you remember happening next?
Just laying there on the ground. At some point, I looked towards the stairs, which laying down, it was kind of up. And there's this teenager. He looked like a young gentleman. I don't know if he was a teenager or just looked young for an early 20s, but just bleeding profusely from his leg in the aisle. And I remember seeing that kid. Couldn't have been more than 16 years old. And so I just stayed laying there, and Mike was kind of trying to help me keep my eyes awake, and then all of a sudden Michelle came back. That's Mike White Sr.'s girlfriend. She came back, and she's rubbing the sweat off of my eyes. And she's cursing at me, saying,
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained.
Without saying what she was saying,
Sorry.
what was she doing?
She was just doing what she could to keep my eyes open, to keep me awake, slapping my cheeks to make sure I didn't close my eyes, because all I wanted to do was close my eyes.
Were you eventually taken out of the theater?
Yes, eventually officers showed up. Again, I don't know the time frame. And I just remember seeing one show up, and he kind of took Mike White Jr.'s place and put his hands on my wounds in my abdomen. And then several more come. They're trying to assess me. They're trying to figure out a way to get me out of there because they couldn't pick me up. And then all of a sudden they bring in a backboard. And the direction I'm facing when on my back would be more stadium seating to the left, and the screen is to the right. So as I'm laying there, they rolled me on my left side, on my injured side, to try and wedge the backboard underneath me, but they couldn't. So somebody grabbed my right arm and yanked me to the aisle to where they were able to wedge the backboard underneath me. And then they picked me up on it, and they started taking me down head first, and then they turned me around. So I would go down feet first so I wouldn't fall off the board. And then we exited straight down on that right side, out of the screen that the shooter came in, or out of the exit that the shooter came in, and then they laid me down outside behind the theater,
Were you eventually transported to a hospital?
eventually.
What vehicle were you transported into the hospital?
In an unmarked cop car.
How'd you get into the cop car?
They put me...
Objection, relevance 40143.
Sustained.
Right. What do you remember about the ride to the hospital?
The seats aren't comfortable. I actually held my hand on the handle above the window because the bouncing was making my side hurt so much. I used whatever strength I could to ease the pain off of that. And then I yelled at the officer holding me in the...
Objection, hearsay 40143.
Without saying what you said, what happened next in the police car?
Sustained.
I looked out the window and saw the stars. It was a clear night, and then I could tell we were getting to the hospital because he had slowed down. The officer driving had slowed down. And while I was looking out the window, I saw the overhang from driving underneath that part of the hospital we were in.
How many surgeries in total did you need to have, Ms. Soudani?
7, and then another procedure on my stomach.
Please tell the jury overall what your injuries were and what the surgeries had to do.
My injuries were, I lost the majority of the back of my left calf, part of my front shin. 3 ribs on my left side were shattered. I had a hole in my stomach about 1 inch wide. My diaphragm was damaged in several places. They had to reattach it together. My kidney was so damaged they had to remove it. They removed only what was left of my spleen. The rest was already gone. I had burns all down from probably like my mid-bicep elbow area. I had burns all the way down the left side of my body and on the inside of my right leg. They were dotted burns. They looked like chicken pox almost. And then I had a gash on the back of my left leg. Part of my left lung collapsed, and there was damage done to the lining of my left lung.
Your Honor, if I may approach the witness with what's been marked as People's Exhibits 2123 through 2126.
Yes.
Ms. Soudani, please review those photographs and let me know when you've had an opportunity to do so.
Okay.
Do those photographs fairly and accurately represent some of the injuries that you sustained as a result of the
Roughly, yes.
I have no additional objections, Your Honor.
All right, with that, I don't think, can I see to 123? Just the first one.
I don't think 2123 was subject to your court order previously, Judge.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to confirm. That's what my notes indicate as well. So P-TR-2123 is admitted without objection. P-TR-2124 through 2126 inclusive are admitted based on the reasons and rulings articulated in amended order D98B and without further objection. And they may all be published.
Thank you.
The doctor is removing the staples from my stomach. That injury, they had to cut me open in order to fix me up. And the cut is from pubic to breastbone.
Sorry, the microphone died on me. Could we please have 2124? Please describe for the jury what you're seeing in this photograph.
That is the area they took the skin from for my skin graft on the outside of my right thigh.
Can I please have 2125?
That is the side view of my left calf after they removed the part of it that was hanging on. There was so much shrapnel they couldn't fix it, so they just cut it off.
Can I have 2126?
That's my calf after the skin graft and after I'd already been healing for roughly a week and a half to 2 weeks.
Thank you. Ms. Soudani, did you ever see your friend Alex Sullivan after the night of July 20th of 2012?
No.
Thank you. I have no further questions for this witness.